Birmingham's inner ring road is a city street of novel character. It was referred to in Parliament by the Minister of Transport when he said, "The Birmingham inner ring road is a road which is not quite a motor road in terms of the experts, but is a limited access road. That kind of road probably fits our cities and our traffic problems better." Looking at a plan of Birmingham's main traffic routes, it'll be seen that the 12 radial roads will terminate at the inner ring road. Thus, traffic having no calls to make in the city centre can be diverted. There's an outer ring road, and also a middle ring road which passes through the 5 large redevelopment areas. Both these roads will be substantially improved, but nevertheless they've existed as working traffic routes for many years. In addition, the national motorway link M6 passes through the northeastern part of the city. And the M5 just touches the city on the west and has a connection to Hagley Road West. The idea of an inner ring road, coloured blue on the map, was envisaged way back in 1918, when the City Council approved the widening of the arterial roads, shown red, to a width of 110 or 120 feet. This was a very far-sighted policy of the Public Works Committee, since few could then have foreseen the magnitude of today's traffic problem. In 1936 there was a certain amount of traffic congestion, and the one-way scheme for the city centre came into being until an inner ring road scheme could function. It was given a life of 5 years, but it's still working today with minor amendments because it was designed on traffic engineering principles. During the war years, an advisory panel was set up, and after conferring with other appropriate organisations, the inner ring road scheme was submitted to the City Council. This scheme was submitted to Parliament in 1945 and received the royal assent on the 1st of August 1946. It consists of a ring about half a mile in diameter with a cross connection or chord together with 2 spurs and a diversion of one of the arterials, making in all about 3 3/4 miles of dual carriageway. The ring road will generally be 110 feet wide, consisting of 2 30-feet carriageways, 2 15-feet footways and a 4-foot central reservation. The carriageways will provide for 3 10-feet wide lanes for moving traffic, and wherever possible 8 feet wide waiting lanes are being constructed with a concrete surface to distinguish them from the red asphalt of the carriageways. These waiting lanes will be used for bus stops and for parking meters, and to some extent by commercial vehicles delivering to adjacent property, although wherever possible rear access for goods is being provided. The Minister of Transport, the Right Honourable Harold Watkinson MP, inaugurated the start on the 8th of March 1957, for approval to commence the work had not been obtained until the previous January. Because of the long delay, it was felt something more spectacular was required than just cutting the first sod, so it was decided that the Minister should explode a charge and demolish a length of wall. To ensure a good effect, the explosive charge was unfortunately increased a little too much, and the official guests found themselves being showered by rubble and stones. Luckily, no one was hurt. After this, work really started, as the old carriageway was broken up. Because of the number of old cellars on the line of the road, a considerable quantity of filling was needed. The cellars had first to be excavated and then properly filled. The material used was obtained from the demolition work in progress in the city or the clearance of old property on the line of the road. This demolition material consists of brick and hard core with a small proportion of mortar and plaster. It was spread in 9-inch layers by means of a D8 bulldozer and was followed by rolling with a 10 to 12-ton smooth-wheeled roller. The breaking up of hard surfaces inevitably causes noise, and complaints were received from the patrons of a picture house adjoining the site of the work. These complaints were satisfactorily overcome by the use of straw bales to deaden the sound. The concrete foundation of the main carriageways, where not on viaduct, is 9 inches in thickness, reinforced with 11 pounds of rectangular mesh reinforcement per square yard. The first section of the ring road entailed a considerable amount of structural work, the part between Hurst Street and Queen's Drive being all on viaduct, thus providing for a pedestrian subway at Hurst Street and a bridge over Dudley Street. Foundations were carried down into compact rock sand. The viaducts normally consist of in situ reinforced concrete columns and continuous beams, with cantilevers carrying the footways and mains ducts. These frames are generally spaced at 25 feet centres, and the 2 feet square columns are spaced transversely at about 30 feet centres, giving a grid of 25 feet by 30 feet. A site for a theatre had been reserved on the north side of the viaduct, and so an approach road was constructed leading from Hinckley Street onto the viaduct. The main beams are 4 feet 4 inches deep and 2 feet 6 inches wide. Here the reinforcement is shown, placed in position. The next stage is the fixing of the shuttering. Then the concrete is poured. And this is compacted using a poker vibrator. These main beams are supported on rocker and sliding bearings of meionite castings with forging quality carbon steel pins. The deck, which is of composite construction, is made up of precast, pre-stressed concrete units. The units, which are of I section, 12 inches wide and 13 inches deep, range from 24 feet 9 inches to 29 feet 9 inches in length and weigh from 1 1/4 to 1 1/2 tons. The units are pre-stressed in the factory on the long line method, each with 38 wires of 0.2 inch diameter, stressed to 70 tons per square inch. The deck is transversely stressed by the Lee-McCall system, using 1 1/8 inch diameter McAloy bars spaced at 17 inch centres. These are threaded through the deck units. High-quality concrete is used for the infilling between the units, and this is also consolidated using a poker vibrator. The final layer of concrete is spread before its consolidation by a vibrating beam. The McAloy bars are enclosed in metal sheathing and are stressed to 42 tons per square inch. They are then pressure grouted with expanding grout. Wedge-type anchorages were first used, but were later superseded by the threaded type. At Dudley Street, the abutments for the 50-feet span flyover carrying the ring road were constructed on each side of Dudley Street while the road was kept open to traffic. Certain concrete retaining walls and bridge abutments were finished in exposed aggregate. A very large retaining wall was constructed along one side of the Midland Red bus station, which is partly beneath the ring road adjacent to Dudley Street. Most of the other structural work involved the construction of various pedestrian subways. The structural width of pedestrian subways has been limited wherever possible to 50 feet, 30 feet, 20 feet or 12 feet, thus achieving economy in design and drawing office work. The first subway was officially opened by the chairman of the Public Works Committee, Alderman D.S. Thomas, on the 8th of April 1959. It's at the junction of Hurst Street and is 50 feet wide and 140 feet long. The circular columns are treated with light green Swedish mosaic, and dark green faience tiling is used in the entrance ramp and walls and returns. In this subway there are continuous showcases 7 feet high and 2 feet deep along each side wall, and shops 12 feet deep at each end. Telephone and retail kiosks are included along the center line of the subway. To encourage pedestrians to use the subways, access to them is made as easy as possible, and in the case of the Hurst Street subway, the whole width of the footways on the 4 corners is ramped. The shops in the adjoining development on the southwest side also follow the ramp and have been recessed to give a very wide and pleasing approach. The average interval between pedestrian subways is that recommended by the Ministry of Transport for surface pedestrian crossings in towns, that is 200 yards, but there are additional concentrations of subways at important junctions and shopping areas. This plan shows the concentration of subways in the old Market Hall area, now called St. Martin's Circus. The developers of this site and this rotunda site were the same firm. They asked the corporation if they could be allowed to provide shops in the subways and a second level of shopping on the north side of the market traders area. This was agreed to by the Public Works Committee. The market traders area has been developed with permanent stalls, and no vehicles are permitted to enter except at special hours to service the shops. The other deterrent to pedestrians crossing the road is a low wall on the 4 feet wide central reservation, made of reconstructed green Cornish granite blocks with reconstructed Portland stone flower boxes on top. Because of the important character of this road, special lamp columns have been designed. Except at roundabouts, these are sited on the outer curbs and provide a much higher level of illumination than was necessary under the Code of Practice. The columns are of steel with a lantern consisting of a domed aluminium canopy and a dished translucent perspex bowl. The overall dimensions being 4 feet 6 inches diameter and 1 foot 6 inches deep. It houses 3 400-watt color-corrected mercury lamps. Servicing is provided for by lowering the perspex bowl, which is counterbalanced by a weight inside the column. For the carriageways of the underpasses, a different form of lighting is being used, consisting of a continuous row of fittings mounted at a height of 3 feet. Building the inner ring road has made it necessary to provide 12,000 yards of new sewers, ranging from 9 inches to 36 inches in diameter. Because of the magnitude of the work and the new levels required for subways, etc., very extensive main alterations have been required, and in many cases the contract period has been dictated by the time required to enable the various public utility undertakings and the City of Birmingham Water Department to carry out their alterations. On the 11th of March 1960, the first section between Horsefair and Queen's Drive was officially opened by the Right Honourable Ernest Marples MP. He was accompanied by the Lord Mayor and Lady Mayoress and the Chairman of the Public Works Committee, Alderman D.S. Thomas. The colour of the asphalt is achieved by using red aggregates, 50% of hardened stone and 50% Mount Sorrel stone. It was also found necessary to add red oxide pigment to the bitumen. Rubber was added to the mix to reduce any cracking to a minimum. In 1945, it seemed that the junctions with arterial roads would function, for a time at any rate, as large single-level gyratories. Subsequent studies showed that grade separation at some of the junctions would be required much sooner than had been thought possible. Grade separation has therefore been incorporated at these junctions as they were constructed. For example, the underpass from Great Charles Street to Bath Street, Mass House Circus, Lancaster Place, and Holloway Circus. Typical of this form of grade separation is the underpass at Sixways Aston. Traffic that has business in the city centre should reach its destination as easily as possible. Fortunately, because of the levels of the ring road, it's been possible to arrange for certain existing streets to pass underneath. Dudley Street, already referred to, is one example, and other situations are at Albert Street, Dale End and Church Street. The central area of the city inside the inner ring road has become a parking meter zone, and parking garages are being erected around the perimeter of the road for long-term parkers. The first multi-storey garage to be erected was the Bullring Garage for nearly 600 cars. This is of the ramp type leased by the developers to a private company. One of the entrances to this garage is by means of a tunnel from the central reservation of the radial road. Cars can therefore enter in the morning without crossing traffic proceeding out of the city. The space underneath the viaduct at Dudley Street has also been utilised for parking with accommodation for 160 cars. Ducts are provided for a forced extract ventilation system which gives 6 changes of air per hour. A sprinkler system is installed and there are offices, a waiting room and toilets. About 85 acres of land are being acquired, and this provides enough for a reasonable frontage depth for redevelopment. More than 40 acres will ultimately be rebuilt upon along the new lengths of streets. This surplus land is being leased to private developers, the corporation thus getting the benefits of the increased ground rents. By this means, it's hoped that eventually the scheme will pay for itself. The estimated cost in 1945 for the whole scheme was £15 million, of which more than £12 million was for the acquisition of properties. The latest estimate is about £23 million for works and property. In the Stewarts and Lloyds building, car parking has been provided on first floor level with rear access. The frontage of the southeast side of the ring road between the old Scala Theatre and Pershaw Street was leased to the Smallbrook Investment Company, who've erected a commercial building which bridges Hurst Street and includes shops, offices and a dance hall. The floodlighting units are an interesting feature of this building. When sites are advertised on building lease, the corporations specify their requirements. In the case of the Bullring Centre, Messrs. Langs were told that within their development they must provide retail market accommodation to replace the old market hall, parking for approximately 500 cars, and an omnibus station for the Midland Red, part of which is underneath the viaduct of the inner ring road. On Smallbrook Ringway, a new hotel, the Albany, was also built. On one frontage, instead of building a retaining wall to support a service road behind the footpath, the service road is carried on piers, and the space between has been converted into lock-up shops. Work on other sections of the ring road proceeded, and Snow Hill Ringway was open to traffic in June 1962. On the 24th of May 1963, Her Majesty the Queen visited Birmingham and was able to see the progress of the inner ring road. The scheme was explained to Her Majesty by the Chairman of the Public Works Committee, Alderman D.S. Thomas. and to His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh by the City Engineer and Surveyor Sir Herbert J. Manzoni. Afterwards, Her Majesty and Prince Philip walked through the pedestrian subways and down the steps into the market traders area in the reconstructed bullring. Here they met and spoke to traders and shoppers. The coloured market stalls blended with the decorated buildings and beds of flowers to make a pleasant background to the royal party as they walked through the bullring to their waiting cars and then drove away to the cheers of the crowd.